Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray, Shaka Hislop and Stevie Nicol here in the studio with a lot of European action to continue talking about. We will start with Manchester United up against Lyon. Probably feeling a little lonely after that is Andre Onana. 2-2 it finishes in that first leg between these two sides. Manchester United were very much on course for the victory until the late stages of it. Mario Melchiot was watching for us too. Mario, your reaction to what we saw tonight and that late equaliser for Lyon, Andre Onana there, not in his best moment, it's fair to say.
Yeah, it was definitely not one of his best moments. I mean, like, you know, we all know the talking before the game, where he, you know, he had a little row with one of the Lyon players. But away from that, just, you know, the two moments when it comes, the cross of the ball, I think Shaka highlighted it. And when no one, we all know that's how we deliver the ball, right? You hope that no one touches it and it goes right into the goal. But at that moment, he just was frozen. The way his team was playing, because you know when you play Lyon, it was for them, for the taking of to say like, let's take it home. When you get that last moment of a win, and then you go last minute, you go and get this goal against you. I think overall, when you do moments, because the first half, they didn't start it bad in the beginning part of the game. But then later on, Lyon started to get more in the game and started to take more control. And I think that's what Man United should be focused on and saying, like, away from home, I need to go away with the result.
Yeah, obviously, we just heard the reference there from Matic saying that Onana is the worst goalkeeper in Manchester United's modern history. He'll be putting his feet up there saying, I told you.
Listen, that certainly didn't help Andre Onana. The little war of words between those two, and as much as Andre Onana tried to downplay it, Nemanja Matic saying what he did kind of puts the spotlight on Andre Onana. And well, as a goalkeeper, we've all kind of been there for both goals. We understand how thin that line is, how thin that margin is. But when you're the goalkeeper for Manchester United, when you've endured or had to endure the criticism that Andre Onana has had to since his arrival at Old Trafford, it's been very up and down. And while it's been, well, in comparison to the start, it's been more up of late. You've got to be making those saves for Andre Onana. That's just the ask when you're Manchester United's goalkeeper. And while, as I say, as a goalkeeper, I understand how easy it is to make that miscalculation. He's made too many since his arrival at Old Trafford.
Is he good enough to be Manchester United's starting goalkeeper?
Expecting to compete in the Champions League, then the answer to that part is no. But Manchester United haven't been that version of themselves for quite some time.
What do you think, Stevie?
Yeah, I mean, listen, in football, you always keep your mouth shut because you never know. You know, and as Shaka said, had things been going great for him, then you can get away with talking trash. But when you're not at your best, keep your trap shut, because it just makes it twice as bad now. And listen, Nemanja Matic is the only person who's sniggering right now.
Yeah.
Onana's on the bus going back to the hotel, wishing he'd kept it shut.
It's not necessarily, I wouldn't call it a criticism, but ever since his arrival at Old Trafford, he's kind of made himself the one to stick his neck out there. And we've criticized this team about not having leaders, not having real leadership and people who are willing to take some of the pressures of playing for Manchester United on their shoulders. And he's shown a willingness to do that. But if you do that, then you've got to back it up with performances. And now, while maybe the press are looking for somebody to say something, nobody's saying anything. And Andre Onana thinks, well, somebody has to represent the club and express our own expectations, self-expectation, and does that. Nemanja Matic is an old warrior. He knows this territory better than anybody else. He also knows that in this game, players, teams will latch on to anything, regardless of how sterile it may seem, to use as motivation. So Andre Onana sticks his neck out there because nobody else does. Nemanja Matic understands well, what he's saying, but more to the point, the moment and the fact that he can get under Onana's skin with that. And as a result, now all the discussion is around his performances or lack thereof. As I said when he first joined, stop trying to be everything that Manchester United is lacking. Play your game. Worry about what you're doing. Let the lack of leadership, etc., figure itself out. You just have to establish yourself. That's something you grow into, and I just don't think that Andre Onana has grown into that. Certainly not as a Manchester United goalkeeper.
Mario?
Yeah. Yeah, and I totally agree with what you say. Like, look, when Onana was at Ajax, I know Onana, I was there at the camp because one time I had to be with the team regarding a charity kind of event or whatever with the first team. So I spoke to him. A very confident player, you understand, sure about himself. And I think that is, for me, never a problem because I love that. As a player is confident that most of the time he's at a good place and he feels good about himself and he can perform. But literally what Shaka said, that is exactly what I agree with. You don't attack an not older, more experienced player. Leave that situation because you know he can say and do the things that you cannot do yet. Why? Because one, your team is not performing every week in and out great. You are coming and playing against a team, Lyon, and Lyon is the underdog. So if you're going to play against them, even if Matic isn't himself personally, but his team is, because Man U is a bigger team. And even if your team is performing better, he can say what he wants because he can say like, okay, guys, we're going to play against each other, but he comes at me, okay, I'm going to let him have one too. And you're not performing well, you're not doing well. Don't always put the shield on you and try to protect every shot that's coming at your team. You don't need to do that. Just focus on the game, focus on that, prepare, try to win, and you'll be in a good place. But he's fighting for no reason because I don't think his team needs to be talking now. Just be quiet, leave it.
You wonder if that goal is going to be, like, how important it's going to be against them when it comes to the second leg, because all of their eggs right now are in that Europa League basket. Right. This is realistically their only shot this season.
Well, if they're smart, then certainly Amorim will lean on what they did in the second half of this game. At half-time when they scored, with the last touch of the ball pretty much, I'm scratching my head thinking, how is this one apiece? Because I just thought Man United was just so far off it. I thought the second half, I thought they did well. Yes, Lyon had a little flurry towards the end when the game sort of opened up, but I thought in general, the second half, Man United were the better side. And so if you're smart, if you're Amorim, you tell Mr. Onana, if you need to, because I would imagine after this performance, he'll be the last person that'll be speaking. But you tell him to be quiet and you get the troops going again and you concentrate on the good things you did in the second half, particularly the way you closed the ball higher. In the first half, they were way too deep and let Lyon play. Second half, no, they got in their face. And as I said, I thought they were the better side. So lean on that in the second leg. I think Manchester United can win the second leg.
And the truth is, we are talking about two goalkeeper mistakes away from home. You're coming back to Old Trafford. Now we can make the argument that Manchester United haven't been outstanding at Old Trafford themselves. But you go away, you get a result, you fancy your chances coming back home. And I think that's Manchester United's position right now. How do you offer them a draw before a ball was kicked? I'm sure Amorim takes it. The man of the draw, of course, hurts a little bit, but it is, for all intents and purposes, a good result on the road.
Here's a question. Who do you play centre forward for Manchester United?
Well, it was a question before the game whether he was going to stick with Højlund or whether he would recall Zirkzee. It looked for 1 minute that Zirkzee had saved them in this game today before, obviously, they got that late leveller. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, yes, he did. Zirkzee did save them. It was a good goal, and he did make a difference when he came on. The problem is that when he starts, it doesn't make a difference.
I think
who's the centre forward for Man United?
I think you have to play Zirkzee. Yeah, you've got at least he scored. At least he scored. So you have to give him that. But to your point, Højlund did. I mean, not only did Højlund not contribute meaningfully, I think it was evident that he is sorely lacking confidence, and that's about as nicely as I can put it. When he gets when he's in possession in and around the box, I really do feel like he's grabbing at straws. He's not sure what he's trying to do. He's not sure what's asked of him, what's around him, and a lot of times just taking the easy way out. And you can't build on that. You simply can't. So while I agree with Steve and some of his concerns around Zirkzee, at least Zirkzee's running around a little bit more. At least Zirkzee, you'll assume, can take some confidence from scoring tonight.
Mario.
Yeah. But you know what I feel with when it comes to Sirikse, his game is like setting others up, and sometimes he dominates. You know, like plays more like as a striker. You put him as a striker, but he plays like a 10. And I feel like he drops too much in the game because he wants to be so much involved in how the team is sticking. And when you are playing as a striker, and I remember, you know, like hearing, for example, Ronaldo, for example, talk, and he said, at the end of his career, he knew that it was about scoring goals. When you're in that position, just score the goals. Like now, you understand, like, okay, even if you come on and you do something great and tick, 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 no, everybody's going to talk about you scoring that header. That's what they're going to focus on. They're not going to focus on the rest of the game. And that's why sometimes, even prior to the goal that he made, Garnacho had a great opportunity. There was a block from Mazraoui. He gets a break. He runs right through the middle, 3 against 2. And he plays the ball behind Fernandes. Let me tell you, this moment when it happened, oh my God, it was like I was playing for Man United. I will go ballistic. How can you play the ball behind a player when this is like what we practice when you're 10 years old, 11, 12 years old, that play in front of him. The break comes on, oh my God, everything gone, 3-2. They're fortunate score, but these are the small little things that Man United, they have to focus on little things like this because it cannot happen. If not, you never win a game like this. Because the game at home is going to be crucial. You're going to be at home, you get your own stadium, but still, it is not given yet that they're going to win at home.
So who goes through, Mario?
What do you say? Who goes through?
Yeah.
Hey, if they open the door like the way, you know, like it's like Stevie said, yeah, they were in the upper hand at the end. But still, I'm worried, man. I'm serious. I would love to say Man United because they play at home, but I'm so worried.
Okay.
So, did you answer there, Mike? Didn't answer, Mario.
Is that
Who's
Man
going?
Yeah, Man United. That's it. I would love to. Okay, Man United. I would love to say
more
Man United.
decisive than our esteemed colleague here?
Manchester United go through. I thought they were the better of the two teams. They have problems. There's both ends of the pitch. There's no denying that. But they were the better of the two teams, and they're at home, so I'm leaning Man U.
Leg between the two sides, 1-1 it is after the first leg of action between Spurs and Eintracht Frankfurt. Archie Rintot is with us as well now to talk more about what we saw and the fact that Frankfurt came away from this game with a 1-1 result. Archie, what stood out to you?
Kawa Santos in goal. He's only 21, but the fact that he's standing in right now for Kevin Trapp, who their winning goalkeeper in the 2022 Europa League successful campaign, it's no small order at all. And for him to have this eccentric way about him and for it to come off, there were 1 or 2 nervy moments. But overall, I think he and Eintracht Frankfurt can be happy with the outcome. Hugo Ekitike has been Eintracht's best player this season now that Omar Marmoush has left the club. And I think that finish early on, the way that he took that tells you the confidence that's going through him right now. I know that there's an expectation from Frankfurt that he should be sold for similar money to Omar Marmoush at some point in the future. But the question for them is, can they get him to hold on for another season if they're in the Champions League? Overall, though, I think with Frankfurt having the home leg next week, they'll be happy to come away without a defeat.
What stood out from Spurs, Stevie?
I'm afraid it's going to be a negative thing that stood out for me. You know, we've just been talking about Manchester United struggles at centre forward. If I'm Solanke, I don't remember if he had a shot or a header or any sort of contribution in terms of trying to score a goal. I mean, again, a centre forward that just doesn't really get any supply. Yes, Heung-min Son had that shot. It was a great save for the keeper. Brennan Johnson kind of hangs around the periphery. But they don't really try and put Solanke in any sort of position in the penalty box to score a goal. They just don't. And yes, we showed some highlights there of goalkeeper making a couple of saves and Bentancur with a header. But in open play, they don't create anything. And so for Solanke as a centre forward, it's almost like he's got to go searching to try and do something on his own. And in the odd occasion where it might be on for the ball to be played in the box, he's not there because he's too busy trying to get a touch. I mean, I just don't see Spurs playing for Solanke. And if I'm Solanke, I'm sure he's really frustrated.
Spurs going through here?
Oh boy. As we said, no. Similar discussion around Manchester United. You're at home, and while you dominate and you get chances, and maybe you should have done better, and maybe we're having a different conversation if some of those chances go in. We know Spurs' issues. You concede 5 minutes into the game against a decent Eintracht Frankfurt team. They've shown that in the Bundesliga. And now going away, I'm not sure Spurs can get that job done. And much like we were discussing with Manchester United, all the eggs, certainly all Ange Postecoglou's eggs, are in this Europa League basket. And again, we're having some of those same conversations around Spurs, whether they're good enough to Steve's point with Dominic Solanke. A week ago, they were away to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. I think I'm right in saying Solanke didn't have a single touch in the Chelsea box. Now, how you pay 60 million or whatever it is for a striker, how you set out your stall, how you set up your game plan, and that 60 million pound striker does not touch the ball in the opponent's box, is simply beyond me. So we can have a discussion whether winning the Europa League is good enough for Spurs, is good enough for Ange Postecoglou. But on the surface of it, right now, tactically, they certainly are not good enough to win this competition.
It sounds like you're not so confident either, Mario.
Yeah, no, I definitely, like looking at the game, of course, you understand there were moments, and I think they will be definitely gutted because they had the opportunity to win this game. There were enough moments, they created the chances, but the thing for me was Maddison made, of course, you understand, in the first goal when they scored from Ekiteki, he loses the ball in the middle of the park and then they score. Then after that, he created the opportunity for them to score again. So that was the thing. So he's that creative side of that team. And what you guys are talking about, for a striker, for being in the situation, for not touching, it's also sometimes, you also have to have that, how will I say, sometimes you're not friendly. And you don't have to be friendly when you play up front. Because even me playing, sometimes you fall out with your own players. And strikers can be really, really difficult. And I think he needs to step away from the nice guy. If he's not the nice guy, he's going to get more opportunities because he's that nice. That's why they don't give him the ball. Come on now, you can't wait that long before you touch the ball.
Frankfurt are not going to be phased in this competition either, Archie. We know that.
They won't be. I like the kind of godfather figure that Mario's cutting there. In terms of you shouldn't mess with it. I think that You're not disagreeing, Mario, I notice. That's all I'm saying. Look, I think that Eintracht Frankfurt are in a very good position because there's not nearly the same pressure on them as there is on Spurs coming into this game in a week's time. And they've got players who can also play better than they did tonight. I think they do have more about them than just playing on the counter. And someone like Mario Götze is a cool head in that team, alongside someone who has that a bit more fierceness, a bit more of the qualities that we're talking about there with Mario, such as Rasmus Christensen and Arta Theate, who have brought real mentality and leadership to this team. And that's also kind of my problem with Spurs. You look at all the quality that they have in that team, and you think, who are the people who are really putting their hands up? And from open players, Stevie was saying, it was far too little for a squad which has far more quality in terms of which has been put into it financially than Eintracht Frankfurt.
Who have you got going through then, Archie?
Frankfurt.
Okay, Mario.
Oh, no, 100%. That place, when you go there, Frankfurt is going to make a big party when Spurs arrives there. So, Frankfurt.
Shaka.
Frankfurt. It's
Okay.
never good when everybody picks one team.
Yeah, I know. Look out, Eintracht Frankfurt fans. Sorry, they might have just cursed you here in the ESPN FC studio. And on the subject of Borussia Dortmund, they were thrashed 4-0 by Barcelona in that Champions League quarter-final first leg meeting on Wednesday. And their team captain, Emre Can, has blasted his teammates in the aftermath. He said it's not a question of system, but rather of whether everyone is willing to give 100% and make the sacrifices required in games like this. Too many things went wrong in the game. We didn't play well today. We were soft, we weren't cohesive enough, and on top of that, We made simple mistakes. Archie in Tut and Mario Melchiot with us. Archie, what's the reaction been in Germany to Dortmund's thrashing?
I'd say that finally some chickens came home to roost, because for so long Borussia Dortmund have been getting away with it on the European stage in comparison to the Bundesliga. But this sort of result comes when, as Emre Can says, if you're not putting in 100% in every challenge and every moment, then you're going to open yourself up to something like this against Barcelona. And there's been some unforgiving criticism of Niko Kovac, the fact that having played a back three, back five in the past two Bundesliga games with success against Mainz and Freiburg, why did he move away from that approach, which against such an attackingly strong Barcelona team, why you wouldn't maybe be at that little bit more defensive, particularly on the amount of occasions that they were torn apart. So Niko Kovac has had to take some flack on that account. But I think everyone in Dortmund is just so weary of this team. And that feels weird, because many of these players were about for the Champions League final last year. And yet the Dortmund fans I speak to, they feel that almost didn't happen, that was a fever dream, because this side just has no real identity and character. And when your captain is coming out and saying that, on top of Niko Kovac as well, saying how actually it felt like players were trying to spare themselves some running because they wanted to use it going forward instead of going back. These are terrible, terrible things to have said about you, I think, if you're a professional. And it's more symbolic of much bigger problems that Dortmund have.
Archie, talk to us a little bit. Obviously, you had a good relationship with Edin Terzic, who do a lot of pitch sides for us here at ESPN. Would there have been any benefit to him continuing in the role that he was with what he had achieved with this Dortmund side?
I'm not sure he liked me towards the end, but there we go. Look, no, all jokes aside, I think that it's not about the coach. If it's always about the coach, then I think it's less about the coach, if that makes sense. And in Dortmund, so often the finger has been pointed in his direction. And from my understanding, it was actually more to do with the players not getting on with him. But if you are continually confirming the status of players who are not delivering on a consistent basis, then you're giving them the power to act however they want. You're giving them the power to do the kind of things that Emre Can and Niko Kovac are saying. So I don't see it. On the one hand, I think that Edin Terzic also had his own issues in terms of getting the squad on side, but I wouldn't lay it at his door, because you look at what's happened for Marco Rosa, for Lucien Favre before him as well, for Nuri Sahin. I think there are huge problems structurally at the club. Whether they'll be addressed this summer, we're going to find out. But also, if you continue signing players with a lack of imagination that Dortmund have, where it looks like most of the scouting has been, well, who's playing well in the Bundesliga, then what are you really going to expect? Because they created such an environment where you can just be comfortable, and where finishing second is okay. And compared to Bayern, when Bayern were, and have done in the past, have picked off the best Bundesliga talent, one thing you can say is finishing second is never okay at Bayern Munich, and there will be consequences. And the problem with Dortmund is that they've given players such as Julian Brandt, Rami Bensebaini, they've given them contracts, Niklas Zula, where they've paid them so much that no one else wants to come in and buy them now. And so they have such a status in the squad that, yeah, it leads to big messes like this one.
Yeah, Mario, you feel with Borussia Dortmund that we often see them at their best when they are underdogs, but boy, not in this game. Were you surprised it was such a blowout? I know how good Barcelona have been this season, but 4-0.
Yeah, but I think sometimes in football we call it timing. This is not the timing you want to play against Barcelona. Lewandowski, that is a player that played there. So one of the key things all footballers have, whenever we play against either it's a team or either it's a country or whatever, like Holland, England or whatever, you know what I had? You're so extra prepped. This guy is extra prepped. Even he did a bicycle kick that was nowhere near that he could score that one because his angle was wrong. But he tried it anyway to score a goal. So I'm saying, like, For Dortmund, this was not the right timing to play them. The only thing they should have brought is the fire that they needed, but they did not bring no fire.
Yeah, do you think they could have done more, Stevie, even if it was going to be a loss, than what we did see from them?
Not really. I mean, they've been getting away. It's been smoke and mirrors all last season. How they got to Champions League final is absolutely beyond me. I mean, Dortmund, for me, the trouble with Dortmund is the director of football or the sporting director, whatever you want to call him, and actually mentioned it earlier. The players they're bringing in aren't good enough for what we expect from Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund have a name because of Klopp and because of getting the Champions League finals. There's an expectation that they're supposed to reach. And these players aren't good enough. And I can't honestly say whether they weren't running hard or not. I really don't know. Only the people involved and that are close to the team can tell who's running and who's not. But that's just one problem amongst a ton of problems. And let's be honest, when you get Anton and Chan playing your centre backs against that front three, I mean, what do you expect is going to happen?
You know, Steve, I'm with you here. I mean, I appreciate the fighting words from Chan and all that, but you could see this coming. And honestly, 4-0 isn't that big a surprise to me, given Dortmund are 8th in Bundesliga. Dortmund are 27 points off Bayern Munich.
And they've only just got back into the top half of the table.
Why is this result against arguably the best team in Europe? How is this such a surprise? Given what we've seen from both Barcelona and Dortmund, had this been 2-0, you'd be asking questions of Barca. I appreciate the fight shown, but this, as a neutral observer, is no surprise.
Champions League, but the feeling from the players is very much that they can turn things around in the second leg. Is that the feeling in Germany, Archie?
The feeling that Thomas Müller was trying to give after the game. In fact, the tone which the interview with him post-match was done was, well, you know, how emotional was it? And Thomas Müller turned around and went, look, I'm not doing a farewell tour here. I'm still a professional sportsman. And I think that if you look at the players that Bayern had out, the 5 key first-team players, I think their performance was actually pretty good in those circumstances. The fact that Rafael Guerreiro there is playing in the number 10 position for only the 3rd time this season, that Alphonso Davies is missing at left back, Upamecano not there because of Eric Dyer, Upamecano with an injury which he's at least back in training for now. Manuel Neuer also not in goal. Manuel Neuer has a much different presence to him than Jonas Urbig, even though Urbig has made a good start. That said, I think for the amount of play that Bayern had, there are some questions being asked of, hang on, we paid 95 million euros for Harry Kane. And I think that's the sort of thing that Harry Kane needs to be looking to even for inspiration. But Bayern was still creating chances there. And that someone like Michael Olise, who has done it on a regular basis in the Bundesliga, that he came up, I thought, with a really big performance in terms of the amount of chances that he created. I think that's a real encouraging sign for Bayern. The problem is there the depth in this squad now with all those players out? I wonder.
Well, will that be taken into account, Archie? Like, what kind of pressure is on this team to be achieving big in the Champions League, especially given that it is at the Allianz Arena, the final this season?
I think it will be taken into account, but Vincent Kompany has not been using it as an excuse, which I think is a good thing, because I think once you open the door to that whole thing, then you start seeing players taking alibis a la Borussia Dortmund. And I think that whilst, look, there is a desperation to reach the final in Munich, particularly now in what is going to be Thomas Müller's last season at the club, there is still been enough of a step forward from last season all round. Sure, they made the Champions League semi-final last season, but remember, Bayern Munich, they didn't finish second last season. They finished 3rd in the Bundesliga. And yeah, it was a disaster of a campaign for them. But under Vincent Kompany, there have been steps forward in terms of the way that the team has played over the season. And yeah, I think one head that may be on the chopping block could be that of Sporting Director Max Abel, if we're to believe the noises in Munich right now. But I don't think Vincent Kompany will be in any trouble. And sure, 6 points in the Bundesliga, I get that. But such is the goal difference that they have over Bayer Leverkusen, they've got to drop points in at least 3 of their last 6 games, and that's if Bayer Leverkusen win their last 6 games. It's very much still in Bayern's hands. So, yeah. Oh.
Well, we'll see. Are Bayern Munich going to turn this around at San Siro, Stevie? No.
No, I don't think so. They would have to be at their very best in order to do that. And I don't believe you can trust, because of the players that are missing in particular, but I don't think what he has, you can trust that they are going to be at their very best all in the one time against an Inter side who, I mean, again, can you say that Inter really deserve to win this game? Probably not. But that's just the way Inter are. They get results and they get points when they shouldn't. And so that's what they've got to do again when they go home against Bayern. And I think they'll do that again.
What did you make of what Archie was saying about Harry Kane, Mario? Obviously a big part of that game and the story was his miss in the first half.
No, look, when it comes to Harry Kane, you know what Archie said, it was kind of crucial. Why? Because he went there because he also wanted to win trophies. So when you go missing and you don't deliver what they want, this is a big club. This is like, you know, regardless if the club doesn't do well, it's a huge club. So for him to be in that situation, there's a lot of pressure they're going to put on you, because it's not like you had a striker prior to when you arrive. He's not scoring anymore and he passes his torch. No, we literally just talked about him, you know what I'm saying? Lewandowski, and he's still doing it. So now you're there. They're going to put the pressure on you. You got to deliver. But when you go to Inter, we all know, hey, the Italian football, one of the key things is defensively. So Inzaghi is going to put his team up. He doesn't have to entertain them. And that's the key thing. And then he can hurt them on the break. And is Italian football like that? Oh yeah, they don't mind playing like that. So when Bayern comes there, they better be really creative to do something special, because if not, it's going to be a game that they might go home and they think like, oh, why did we turn up? So Bayern got to be really, really up to pace to win this game.
Shaka, who goes through?
Inter. I thought they did everything that was needed of them in Munich. Yes, we could be having a very different conversation, and Harry Kane put that chance away. But the fact is, I thought Inter were good value for at least a point. And now going back home, I feel Bayern have far more problems than Inter have weaknesses, and so Inter go through.
It would finish for Chelsea, and so.
One-sided.
Mario Melchior watching this game for us. Stevie's pulling faces. We'll get to that in a minute.
The big occasion, eh?
Yeah, well.
Mario, was it worth resting the players for this then? The result that we see here, 3-0. You were watching this game.
Yeah, no, I think it was a game that, look, Chelsea turned up and it was a team like they were dropping so far back, so they were defending the whole game. So this was a game that Chelsea had to be patient and everything. I think the first half they were really slow, you know, in the tempo, the way they moved the ball around was really slow. Second half they picked up the pace, and you could see that in the scoring, because they quickly got into the game of winning it. But away from that, when you as a team set yourself defensively and you concede, now you have to open up, and they couldn't do that, and that's why they scored the second, the third, and everything started to be open. The goalkeeper helped at certain parts, picking up the penalty, but then there were also certain occasions that he didn't really help his team as well. So I think, no, overall, yeah, Chelsea won this game. They needed to win this game because it wasn't that hard, I think.
Anything to say on this one, Stevie?
Boring. I mean, it's a cakewalk. So far for Chelsea, this tournament has been nothing short of just, it's too easy. It's just too easy.
How easy?
They haven't had a game yet.
Be?
They have not had a proper competitive game yet in this tournament. That can't be right.
How easy is it going to be to finish in the top 5 in the Premier League for them now?
Right now, I'm not putting my money on them. Right now in the Premier League, they are about as average as it's possible to be, considering the talent they have. They have hit a wall in terms of performance. They're not exciting to watch anymore, certainly not the Chelsea we saw around the Christmas period or just before it, where it was all swashbuckling and chances and goals, and all of a sudden we're talking about Chelsea they've got over the woes of the last 2 or 3 seasons, but no, right now they're searching for some good form, and they're winning these games. But you know what? They should be winning these games because the competition just isn't there.
Did it make sense for him to rest players against Brentford, given how tight the race is to finish in those top spots in the league?
No, it's a short answer to that. I'm with Stephen that I'm not, as we said, I'm not convinced that Chelsea finish top 5. And while everything Stevie says is absolutely right about Chelsea, about their lack of performances, and you could probably say the exact same for Manchester City, kind of give Manchester City a pass because we know how good they can be, not how good they've shown themselves to be. I think Newcastle finish in top 5. I think Aston Villa is also an interesting proposition. While they exceeded all expectations last season, probably exceeded expectations in the Champions League thus far. You don't see them getting through from here on in, but you just wonder if the team doesn't take some confidence from not just this run, but matching it with the likes of PSG, albeit you finish second best, and probably will finish second best over 2 legs. Because otherwise, again, the likely contenders in Chelsea, Manchester City, are not at all themselves or that convincing.
Mario, how's your confidence for Chelsea with a top 5 finish?
No, we just have to be honest. What the guy said is clearly honesty. You know, like, I of course, if you ask me, do you want them to be in the top 4? Yeah, of course. Okay, now I think there's an extra spot coming in. But anyway, away from that, you know, there are so many teams around them that are as hungry. And I think sometimes I'm asking the question is, are they hungry enough to get themselves over that line? Because Nottingham Forest, they want to make history. Newcastle already won a trophy, so they're going to be like, hey, we want to do something because we want to get in that. Because financially, it's also a very, very, very attractive thing to be in that part, and also because of the exposure of the Champions League. So for Chelsea, it will be really tricky to get themselves over the line, but they should be able to do that with the quality they have in the team. Madueke back, scoring 2 goals. He hadn't, you know, he was injured for so long. So for him now, you understand that I always said wingers need to score goals, and I'm happy he scored those 2 goals.
Yeah, okay, so that was Chelsea in their conference action. There was plenty of it on Thursday. The rest of the results. Rapid
He never
Vienna
told you whether they were getting through.
No, he didn't.
Oh,
Sitting on the fence a little tonight, isn't he? Shaka's power rankings. This is why he does need a big rest.
Yes.
Working on it all day.
The old algorithm was firing up till late in the afternoon today.
Okay.
Well, listen, top 4 kind of speaks for itself. The 4 favourite to go through to the Champions League semi-finals. And then Galatasaray continued to run away with things in Turkey, as do Ajax in the Eredivisie. Benfica, Newcastle are up to, just despite winning silverware, just continue to win games as they have. Betis and Antony have been the story of 2025 in Spanish football, outside of Barcelona and Real Madrid for different reasons. Bayern Munich are in at 10. Well, one, because they needed a 10th team. And 2, they of those that lost in the first leg in the quarterfinal, probably have the best chance of turning around that result, though I'm not convinced they will. But
Hold on. Can you say that again? Can you say that again a bit?
So, the four favourites to go through to the semi-finals are the top 4.
Right.
Of the other 4 quarter-finalists, Bayern probably have the best chance to overturn the first leg result.
You think?
Who's got a better chance?
I don't care who's got a better chance. Bayern Munich got beat. I thought this is about the best teams. The best teams don't get beat. They just got beat in the Champions League. How can they be in the top 10?
Like I said,
there's potential.
They're top of Bundesliga.
They're changing the rules now.
No. I'm just saying, they're top of Bundesliga. They concede a last-minute goal against Inter, who are, second or third? I think I have them in the top 10.
Oh, they're not even top. So they get beat by a team that's not even top of their league. So why didn't you put... Why is Inter? Oh, Inter are in 4th. No, come on, Shaq.
What?
I was Bayern. Come on. You need to check the mechanics of the algorithm.
No, I think the algorithm has withstood this test of time.
The mechanics.
It's just,
Mario,
You need to get him in.
Good teams lose sometimes,
Mario,
Stephen.
do you support the algorithm and the effort that Shaka put into his power rankings today?
I support the algorithm of Stevie because I think he's the best answer to all the algorithms. Shaka, he's going at you and he's making a point. He's saying like,
drag it down,
they're not doing
Mario.
well.
I like the music.
Best teams lose.
I like the music though. The music's good.
I know, the music's like a little chill, you know?
Makes me feel right at home. This.
Yeah, it does. Oh well.
Need a
That's
drink
Shaka's
with an
power
umbrella in it.
Hello and welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. It's been hard to pin Mario Melchiot down today. He's here with us, been trying to dodge our questions all show
boy.
Yeah.
on ESPN
Yeah.
FC.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, he knows it as well.
Yeah.
Shaka are here too. Let me see if I've got the cues in my email, and if not, I'll read them off the screen.
I need some
All
water.
right.
I'm thirsty.
All right. Oh, yes, we do. Here we go. Thank you, Jack. Okay, guys. Do you agree with yesterday's squad, besides Ale, that Barca isn't in the top 3 favourites to win the Champions League?
Hey,
Yeah, I heard that.
who said that?
Ian said Inter, Arsenal and PSG.
Yeah.
Hey,
Surely Barcelona are
surely
top
Barcelona.
favourites.
Of course they are.
Barca and PSG are my 2 favourites.
Yeah.
Barca and PSG are my 2 favourites.
Craig's not saying Barcelona either.
Why? What was his reason?
Inter. Craig had Inter all season long.
Love that everybody loves Inter.
Yeah. No, Craig. To be fair, Craig had Inter all season long. So I'll give it, and he'll
Oh, so
remind
he's just
you.
been stubborn.
He'll remind you of that. He'll remind you of that
Yeah,
fact.
but you can say, look, I'm sticking with Inter. I think Inter will win it. But
a normal person can say that.
fair enough.
Yes,
Yeah, he's not.
yes.
Oh,
You have to-
my.
You have to establish.
Yeah, he's not
You
Craig.
have to establish that.
Okay, who's your top 3?
Barca, PSG,
Inter.
Do you agree with
Agreed.
that?
Yeah.
Mario, you have to answer the question.
Barca and PSG is a draw for me. I've got them neck and neck.
Okay, I will
And
answer
then
the
Inter
question.
third.
Top 3 to win the Champions
What-
League.
The top 3. PSG is just so talented. Barca, I already said, yeah, that's definitely clear. And then the third one, woo-hee-hee. I know the guys are calling Inter. Yeah, Inter maybe because of I think Inter is just pure business. They don't care. It doesn't have to be cute. Just win the tournament. So if Inter goes in it, and I like a surprise of Arsenal, of what they did. I don't mind if they surprise me and come up with some magic. But they did make me happy when I saw those 2 goals flying in, regardless if I don't support them. But I think it was great to watch.
How we asked for the top 3 and Mario mentioned 4 teams.
At least,
Right.
No, I said,
Wait.
I said,
you put 2 in
I
one
said,
spot.
I like
Yes,
it.
but I called 3. But I went with 3.
I said 3, and I said I don't mind a surprise of Arsenal. That's what I said. I said the top 3, and I said I don't mind a surprise. Why are you attacking me? I didn't do anything wrong.
So is Arsenal in the top 3 or no? Is Arsenal in the top 3?
No.
All right, okay. All right.
Inter
I stand
PSG
corrected. I stand
and
corrected.
Barcelona.
I stand corrected.
does Mbappe make his teammates worse?
Oh boy.
Neymar, Messi, Di Maria, Dembele, Vinny, Bellingham, Rodrigo. I feel like throughout the years his teammates need to step down so he can shine, unlike some of these names who made the ones around them improve.
Oh boy.
It's difficult to argue, isn't it?
See, no, it is tough because I really like Kylian Mbappe. I really do. But the same conversations we're having about Real Madrid right now, we were having about PSG last season. Same conversations we're having about PSG right now, we were having about Real Madrid last season. About how complete they are as a team, how good they look, and punch above their, all the glowing attributes you had about Real Madrid last season, we now have about PSG, about how balanced this team is, how they're working for the manager. And then similarly, talking about Real Madrid and some of their parts, incredible talent, but just not playing well. Sounds really familiar. Sounds really familiar in France. And unfortunately, the one common thread through it,
Common denominator.
it was Kylian Mbappe. And now, to PSG's failings, PSG was a little bit of a circus with or without Kylian Mbappe, right? And I think that goes to the ownership. But certainly over the last 12 months, he was the last remaining big star. They failed. Now look at how much. And in talking about that, you remember last year when Luis Enrique, they had this clip of Luis Enrique sitting down with Kylian Mbappe in the video room, talking about what he needs him to do. And as soon as he finished, Mbappe just walked out. Now we're having these conversations, and again, I really love Kylian Mbappe, but I just couldn't help but think about that, about how quickly he just got up and left, almost dismissing what Luis Enrique had to say. And now look at how PSG have become a team in his absence, under the same manager. You know, I just couldn't help but think about that as the stories kind of unfolded over the last 2 days.
Yep. What do you think, Mario?
No, I think, look, Real Madrid always been a team that has so many stars. And they always had to work to make this, you know, they work, as hard as they work to get the star in, they also have to work hard to make it work. And it's not the first time it happens, you know, when they go up and down. You just have to figure it out now, because I think you got all those players in there. And I don't think Mbappe is there and he's not hungry to succeed, because that will be the worst part. So then I will be like, yeah, now I'll definitely be, oh, he's making his team worse. No, but he's still hungry, he works hard, he wants to score goals. The only thing is the system that they play, it's a difficulty. I think Ancelotti is in the situation, because I love him as a coach. But to always satisfy your stars is very, very difficult, guys. I think we talk about it, but it's a club. They want the stars. Everybody has to play, you know, like, you know, if you play Fini left, people talk about Mbappe should play there and this and that. I think you got to look, and because I don't think he has the influence to make sure that, hey, guys, we're going to do a bad thing. No, I don't think he has that. I don't think people are going too far for that yet. They got to make it work.
Lads, which of these fallen Premier League stars have the best chance of a comeback? Grealish, Sancho, or Nunez?
Oh, boy. Grealish. That's all I got. I can't tell you why.
I'll go Nunez.
Yeah,
I'll go Nunez.
Can you tell us why, Stevie?
Well, Jadon Sancho just, I'm sorry, it doesn't work for me. Of the three players that you're talking about here, Sancho's the one guy who's actually on the field right now, who's been starting, and he hasn't done anything. He's going to be going back to Man United at the end of the season, and he ain't going to be playing for Man United, so he doesn't have a comeback, basically. I would go with Nunez. I think, you know, Nunez is. There's too much pressure on him at Liverpool now. He's seen as the guy who's the nearly man. I don't see that tag changing. But when he goes somewhere else, which he will, he'll score goals. Yeah. So that's why I'm going Nunez. I'll go Grealish second, and Sancho. Yeah, I don't see where Sancho ends up.
I'll tell you why I go Grealish, because Grealish has been good in the Premier League. At least we know he can be good in the Premier League. Sancho is good for Dortmund, not in the Premier League. Darwin Nunez has not been good in the Premier League either. So Grealish for me.
Okay. All right. Let me move on to the next question.
Mario said all three.
Yeah.
Mario
said all of the above.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jack Sancho Nunez, he said. Yeah. Jack Sancho Nunez.
Shaka. Shaka, if Newcastle reach the top 5 and qualify for the Champions League, what should they do differently for next season so that they don't repeat what happened in the 23-24 campaign?
I think the squad is bigger and certainly better prepared for what that first foray into the Champions League is a tough ask, and probably puts what Aston Villa has done into better perspective. Aston Villa in the quarterfinals. I take nothing away from the run that they've had so far, but I think that new experience, how you balance the highs of a big Champions League night and beating PSG at home, and then how you come back down to the bread and butter of the league the following weekend. They've shown that they can do it. They win the cup final against Liverpool, and in the next game, they beat, I think it was Brentford at St. James's Park. that kind of high and then back down to take care of business, that's learned. And I think Newcastle learned that last season. They've shown that they can do that, again, with that example, and we'll be better for it come next season.
Definitely huge that Eddie Howe has been through it once.
Yeah.
So now he knows exactly what to expect. And, and as good as Villa have been in Europe, guess what? Their manager has been there, done it, over and over and over, Unai Emery in Europe. So I guess that's probably the reason why they're doing so well.
Speaking of Europe, let's get Mario to actually answer this.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Who's your favourite to win the Europa League, Mario?
That's a big question to ask me there. Whew. You know who I want to win? You know who I wanted to win? Yeah, I want Chelsea to win, of course, but...
No, the Europa League. Europa League. You've got to be in it to win it, Mario.
Oh, Europa! Oh, they're in the Conference League. Okay, Conference League. Okay, now you go Europa League with me. You know what? This is the perfect moment, okay, for me to not say anything.
What?
Again.
Oh my! Oh boy!
Can we offer up an Eintracht Frankfurt
Stevie.
for you?
Yeah.
No.
Who
No.
are we Rangers? Glasgow Rangers.
Rangers, Spurs,
No,
Manchester
man,
United.
no, come on, Stevie. Come on, I like everybody.
Athletic
you know, no,
Club.
Okay, then you know what?
Athletic
I go for
Club.
no. I go for Frankfurt.
Okay. Sounds so convincing.
Yeah.
I'm sure he could really tell us why.
Athletic Club.
Because the final's at home.
Well, the final's at home and they're as good as anybody else that's in this tournament.
Okay.
You don't want to play against... You certainly don't want to play anything to do with the Williams brothers,
No.
do you? No, thank you.
No.
So, yeah, I'll go with them.
Shaka.
Has his draw been made all the way to the final? As in, know it's two sides of the bracket as you do in the Champions League?
It has, isn't it?
Without knowing it, if you were to just say it now, what would you go with?
Yeah.
Athletic Club.
Okay.
I'm a little bit torn between them and Athletic Club. Go ahead.
Given Manchester United's struggles in recent seasons, do players find it easier to play away from home? And is having the second leg against Lyon at home an advantage or a disadvantage? This came up in the show, didn't it?
It did.
No, I know people say that, and that United have had the struggles at home, but it's never easier to play away from home. It's just not. It's just not. So I would say no. It's not easier to play.
I think at times it is easier to play away from home. When you're not playing well and the crowd are on your back.
Depends who if you're playing against the under 16 boys from down the road, then yeah.
No, I get it, because for me, travelling fans are always, in my opinion, are more accepting, right? So they're not just there to give you a hard time. I mean, nobody gets on a bus for 4 hours just to shout abuse.
Take away the bottom three. You don't want to. You wouldn't rather play away from home.
Right. No, but saying that, Manchester United have a way, especially in games that they need a result, that they're not too bad at home. You know, Manchester City, and while that game was absolutely dour, it's still a Manchester derby. There's still, or you hope, some level of pride there, and they managed to get the result. You know, they managed to get the result. I'm not sure how many people expected it, but you managed to get a result. And I think Manchester United just found a way of doing that. And in Europa League, as we keep saying, all their eggs are in this basket. And then at home, I think that it's better to be at home in the second leg in this competition, where the fans are expecting a performance result.
You were laughing at.
How did you get
it? Mario.
So is that a yes? Is that
I said yes. They prefer to be at home. I think you're happy to be playing at home in
but
this
that's
round.
what I said.
No, you said you don't ever prefer to be
Away from home.
And all I said is there are.
started off
No,
by
all I
disagreeing
said is there are times. There are times
You started
Oh
off
my
disagreeing with me.
Well, all I said was...
And then the last thing you said was,
you know, you,
and Man United will win because they played at
you
home.
You both should try
No,
what
all
I'm
I
doing.
said was... All I said
Try
was...
what I'm doing.
I'll use an example. I've played in teams where you prefer to be away. When you're not playing well. When the crowd are on your back. And this Manchester United crowd hasn't been on their back in the more important games this season.
Okay. This altercation has gone to VAR. While they decide, which will probably take about 15 minutes. Last question is for you, Mario. Should Højlund be sold this summer?
Oh, boy. Who? Who's buying it?
That's one thing, you know. But should he be sold? I think if you want to look worse as a team, you sell him. Because why? Because then it means that you didn't make a good judgment in getting a player. So I think
experts at that, aren't they? United.
Right.
I wouldn't sell him. Because what comes in needs to battle with him, but needs to make him, because he's not at that age that you can say like, okay, get rid of him because he's too old. No, I think, but get a player that is, you understand, a total different player than Højlund, because Højlund, he fights and this and no, you need the scrutiny in the sense of like someone that just focus on scoring goals, and then Højlund can see stuff like that and say like, hey, it's not about fighting your opponent all the time. It's just about putting the ball in the back of the net.
When last has serious question. When last has Manchester United bought a player and everybody thought, yeah, that's good, that's a good sign, and it worked out that way? They paid how much they paid for Højlund? Was it like 70?
70.
So to the question, who's going to buy Højlund? Who's going to buy Jadon Sancho? Well, Betis may come in for Anthony given his performances, but you paid 100 for him. You're not going to get that from Betis.
Aye.
You know, I mean, and you can go through the entire list. Mazraoui, has he been the best of the recent signings? And is that really, has he been that good to say, well, okay? There's just genuinely, there's just been nobody that you say, yeah, that was money really well spent.
Van Nistelrooy.
Let's end it there.
Van Persie.
Van Nistelrooy go way back then. All right, that's all we've got time for on the latest edition of ESPN FC. Thank you so much for sending in your questions for extra time. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again.